going on? First of all, Elon Musk, once again, the hero, the bomb, the ultimate troll, has trolled CBC, and they are freaking out over here in Canada. It's pretty glorious to watch. We're also going to cover some crazy stuff going on in the States. Chicago is doing some crazy rioting, but don't you worry, the mainstream media is not going to cover it because they're going to cover another story about they totally made it, totally mountain out of a molehill incident, and we're going to show you how they're choosing to cover that and not to cover a more relevant story that's even more horrifying. We're going to show you a little bit of that. And then we have a couple of additional stories from Lizzo, once again showing how she's the greatest, and fat pride activists going nuts. Budweiser tries to appease his fans with more non-apologies, and man, it's a crazy weekend. You're not gonna want to miss what we got to cover today on the Shrewd Dudes podcast.
I don't know what that was. That was weird.
Okay.
Yeah, the intro had a major delay in the sound coming through my headphones. I was like, "What? Mm-hmm. Okay, sure, whatever."
I think we need Stephen. I think we need a demon exorcism because the
really?
amount of tech issues that we get on a regular basis.
Now, okay. So, speaking of tech issues, I went through. So this is for you, the fans, people who like to see Danny's face. So I figured out what the problem was. Discord had this update, and Discord apparently made it so that Danny's video was privatized. Yeah. I don't know exactly how, but whenever I left Discord, it would make his video disappear.
Yeah.
And I'm very tired because I've been up since 4.
But it's either a glitch or it's a intentional
thing.
Action. Yeah. They try to I don't know. Do something.
Well, it's the same thing. What happens if I'm watching a YouTube video and I leave the screen, blacks out in the same exact way. So I think it's intentional, and I'm just like, "Dang you piece of crap! Why do you do this to me?"
Used to work perfectly. Now it doesn't.
Oh, I know. Up until the most recent update, it was everything is wondrous. Now it's just everything is garbage.
Everything's not awesome.
Exactly. So I have fixed it because we're running Discord for audio and screen sharing, and then it's this other program just for Danny's video.
Another dedicated program just so
you can see Danny's face. So
super complicated.
Yes, I am putting extra strain on my computer, and that's why I have the powerful processor. Mm-hmm. Because the fans.
He's got the power.
Exactly, I do.
He's got the power.
So all of that
really
is to say, things are now working. They should be okay. Everything should be good. It'll just take a bit of extra time to set up. Before we jump in,
you can do it.
I know. I'm just it's 9:30, and I'm just I'm so tired.
We don't have time for a catch up. We have to get straight to the show, man.
Straight to the show. Let's go. Let's
do this.
All right. So let's jump in right away. Let's go. So from the video from True North, just watch the first few seconds. It's hilarious.
Full screen.
CBC? CBC?
What's happening?
Government funded media.
Oh!
69%!
Oh my god!
Victory!
Holy smokes, man.
Nicely done.
No,
So
yeah.
shout out to Ratio, the Trudeau Star channel for creating that. There's some amazing video editors out there. The Quartering does some awesome ones. There's just a lot of channels that do great work.
It's a good job.
It really does emphasize the circus that happened basically this past
weekend. Oh yeah.
Yes. Okay. So for a little background, for people who don't know, a little catch up quick is basically last week, what was it? Twitter gave NPR, which is American National Public Radio. They gave them the what is it called? State-sponsored.
State-sponsored, government-funded media.
Yeah, something like that, right? And then NPR had a big freak out.
Did the same thing with BBC. Did the same thing with BBC.
Well, then first it was NPR, and then PBS joined in. So that was a big thing. And then BBC got it, but everyone was wondering, why isn't CBC getting it?
And because including Pierre Poilievre, because Pierre Poilievre was like, Elon, CBC. And he's like, okay.
And that was a big deal because, like, Poilievre, not only was he, like, publicly saying, like, to Elon to do it, he also wrote a letter. He published a letter where he publicly asked Elon Musk, why isn't CBC getting it? And so when it did drop, oh my gosh, everyone everywhere in Canada, all of the legacy like nut jobs out there, they all jumped on board. And it's funny, they all follow the same script. If you watch carefully enough, they all repeat the exact same talking points because they all get the same talking points from whoever it is that's making these talking points. It was pretty glorious to watch. It was like if you had to summarize it in a single word, it would be wah, like just nonstop wahs. Just that's what it was.
Well, let's jump to the CBC story. So, as you said, making the point lately to label publicly funded news organizations as such on Twitter, as he did at NPR last week. CBC's latest news outlet labeled as government funded. CBC clarified less than 70% of its fund comes from the federal government. Musk altered it slightly to 69% in mockery of the claims. As a result of the labeling, CBC announced it will be pausing its Twitter accounts. So, Twitter's on policy defines government-funded media as cases where the government may have varying degrees of government involvement over editorial content. This is clearly not the case with CBC Radio Canada.
That would be opinion, and that would be the wrong opinion.
Yeah, so CBC is a crown corporation that operates independently of the Canadian government. Moreover, the government does not implicate itself in any editorial decisions. That is total BS.
Now, it's like there's no thorough there's no hard evidence you can have, but you can very, very clearly see their editorial bias in the way that they report.
Oh, yeah.
So it's difficult to prove to a person on the street or a person online that CBC is clearly biased, because how do you arrive at that conclusion? If you've done enough observation, enough research, you'll be like, yeah, they're very biased in the way that they report. But there's people are looking. Give me one thing that proves it. It's like, well, you can't. Yeah. Because so you have to. This requires more complicated, nuance. Discernment, nuance. Yeah, exactly. Anyways, go on.
Yeah. So according to this website, an example of state media would be Russian television and radio broadcasting company. Twitter does not have a public relations staff. The Canadian press emailed the site for clarification. It only received a response with a poop emoji. See, it's funny. Okay. After the Calgary Herald posted about this video, about this whole incident, turning, and I'm like, oh yeah, Elon Musk just won the internet this week. And this guy's like, who thinks that? And I'm like, millions of people who find him hilarious.
It is so true.
Because Canadian press emailed the site for clarification. How do you respond? A poop emoji. You're like, poop.
So here's the thing I will say about this whole debacle that happened. This should not be controversial.
No,
this should not. It's clear. What do they say? Government-funded media. Is that true? Yes. It's not even remotely out of the line of truth. It's just, the problem is here's the cardinal rule when it comes to there's a very big saying. You're over the target when you're getting a lot of fire, pushback, right? And so the fact that not only everyone in existence on Twitter, all the liberal idiots on Twitter went nuts, but also the fact that the prime minister felt the need to go online and basically say this is an institution. It's an attack on democracy. Yeah, methinks you defend a little too hard.
A little too much protestation.
Little too much.
Trudeau accuses Elon Musk of attacking independent media organization. CBC by accurately labeling them government-funded. So JT's hypocrisy is on full display as his government spends millions on promoting digital media literacy, yet he cannot handle a single label on Twitter that accurately describes the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation as government-funded. The statement is undoubtedly true. The CBC receives over $1.2 billion a year in government funds. However, Trudeau was incensed by Twitter's labeling and immediately tried to blame the Conservatives for delegitimizing independent media organizations.
I think it says a lot about the Conservative Party of Canada. That they're choosing to constantly attack independent media organizations, journalists who are working hard to keep Canadians informed. And
my goodness, it's like let me rephrase this for you, Trudeau. Be like, it is sad that the Conservatives have gone so far to point out that my propaganda organization is indeed a propaganda organization that serves at my will and beck and call. Because that's exactly how Trudeau sees the CBC. When they're trying to attack a foundational Canadian institution, the fact is that he has to turn to American billionaires for support to attack Canadians says a lot about Mr. Poilievre and his values. It's like, no.
It is just, it's ridiculous, actually.
Yeah, well, Trudeau, as we know, like, to upcoming Bill C-11, unfortunately in Canada, that only has to pass the Senate, because Canada is a joke.
Go, do me a favor. Go back to go back to the YouTube video, and go to the 137 mark, and this is CBC's official response.
Oh yes, it was so funny.
Yeah, so here's what CBC actually said.
All right,
in response to the whole thing. So just go pause it to that part there.
Labeled the opposition leader a threat.
Okay, you can read it. You have to pause it like that in the pause video.
Okay.
So 136. There you go.
Yep.
So
you
can read it out loud then. Yeah.
Our journalism is impartial and independent. To suggest otherwise is untrue. That's why we are pausing our activities on Twitter. Notre journalisme est impartial et indépendant.
No. Go a few seconds up to 139. This is Stephen Guilbeault is one of the people in his government, in
opposition leader,
government.
a threat to.
And here's what he said: millions of Canadians rely on CBC Radio Canada, and Pierre Poilievre wants to shut down these homegrown information services and sides with U.S. media giants. Poilievre's a threat to Canadian democracy. Plain and simple.
Oh
like
my gosh.
the gall on these people, eh?
That's pretty nuts. That's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
Like,
so it's not that like there's something I like to say. There are things that like you feel like the criticism is unfounded. Sure, that's fine. But you feel that any kind of criticism is like it's like criticizing like a holy relic. It's like it's sacred. They're treating the CBC like it's somehow sacred. Yeah. And that should worry you because, like, no, the CBC is absolutely not beyond,
beyond criticism or reproach.
Yeah, it's not. It's just not, right? I mean, go to where is it? Okay, go to the last one, 3:28 mark. The 3 minutes 28, and that'll be the last one. This is Jordan Peterson's take. It was so good. 3:28.
Another step forward to your well-deserved self-demolition. And Michael Malice responded this way to Twitter. The enemy of the people is fleeing.
Pause the video, man. Pause the video.
CBC. Another step forward to your sense believes this.
Okay.
Pause
no one with an iota
YouTube
of
channels,
sense.
But they're afraid to complain to Google the way they do for Twitter. Jordan Peterson responded this
There
way.
we go.
No one with an iota of sense believes this.
Pause it.
Well, I was just getting him to read it for me.
Well, yeah, but
pause away. You won't
read it
miss
out loud.
CBC. Another step towards your well-deserved self-demolition.
Yeah, because what the CBC did in their response, in their outrage, they basically said we're outraged that you would point out that we're
that you would point out that we're
so
government funded.
We're going away for now, and Jordan Peterson well, good riddance.
Bye.
Nobody will miss you.
Up yours, woke moralists.
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly what it's like. So it's
I love how my coworkers know that phrase.
Okay.
Because I'm like, what's the Jordan Peterson phrase I'm looking for? And my coworker Kate just looks at me. He's like, up yours, woke moralists. And I'm like, yes.
They get it.
I'm
They
like,
get it.
good job. I have taught you well. Yeah. No, like CBC, and I remember like even as a kid talking to my dad, and my dad's like, well, Rex Murphy is basically the only reason we watch the National, because CBC is pretty biased towards the Liberals, and that sucks. And then as we go on, then it's just like, well, CBC is biased, and CTV is biased, and Global News is biased. And it's like, well, they're biased, but they can't admit they're biased. Whereas other organizations, like we've highlighted today, like True North, like Post Millennial, like Rebel News, these organizations are biased, but they admit it. They're like, yeah, we have conservative bias. Why would we try and hide that we have conservative bias? Like, it doesn't benefit us. It's like everybody who follows us, like you have Rebel News go to, like when they went to freedom rallies, Rebel News would show up and they'd be heroes. Because everyone knew that, yes, they were biased towards the rallies, but they were trying to portray them in a light. They were trying to show them in a manner in which the mainstream narrative would not. And that's why actually we were well liked at the rallies. Because a lot of people knew about us and they're like, oh yeah, they're fine. They're good. Like they're totally,
These guys are all right.
They're above board. They're on the level.
That's right.
Whereas you had like Global or CTV or City News or CBC, and they'd be like, get out of here. Like, what are you going to do? Edit half the video to make us look like nincompoops and show one sentence or even like 2 words that we've said? Of course you are. Because you're not real journalism. All you want to show is you want to show an editorial agenda, and that doesn't work when it comes to actually trying to portray real news. And we would continue to talk about this, but we do need to continue to move on.
It's a good story, but it's more a good story because of the reaction.
Yes.
The
overreaction from CBC and Trudeau.
Yes. Everybody. No, not just Trudeau.
Everybody
Every
involved.
liberal talking head was going nuts. And, yeah, of course, it's all Polyev. Polyev's the bad guy here. It's like,
Polyev is the bad guy.
no,
But something that the liberal talking heads should be going nuts about, but they are not, is Chicago. So hundreds of teens caused fiery chaos in downtown Chicago as they torched cars and rampage organized on social media. Vastly outnumbered, police managed just 15 arrests. So more than 100 teenagers. Yes?
It's fiery, but mostly peaceful.
Oh, definitely. Fiery, mostly peaceful. So more than 100 teens gathered in Millennium Park on Saturday. The rowdy group torched cars and got into fights before gunfire ended the night. 2 teenage boys, 16 and 17, were reported shot but in stable condition.
Jeez.
So shocking footage shows some teachers jumping on top of a bus while others started a massive brawl while descending on Millennium Park in an attempt to breach barricades. Gunshot rang out and some rounds striking 2 teenage boys. They were transported to a nearby hospital. And unfortunately, these are just pictures. Here is some video. Here's some pretty blurry video, but this is just some of the footage. Like this is mayhem. This is mayhem.
Yeah.
And it was actually interesting because there was a reporter who was asking the outgoing mayor of Chicago about how she felt. Be like, okay, like how do you can you describe your reaction to seeing the mayhem? And be like, it's not fair to call what occurred on Saturday Night mayhem. Like these are just people that do not have proper outlets. And it's like, no, that's mayhem. That is chaos and panic and disorder. And it's because you guys have completely botched crime and justice in the city of Chicago. The city of Chicago is a joke, and I don't know why anyone would feel safe there.
Well, keep going down to like there's some other videos. One of the videos that I found the most crazy is the people pulling a guy out of his car. I think it was like I think they showed,
so this is the teens jumping on top of a bus. Yep, this is an active service bus, and they're just jumping on top of it.
Going crazy. And below that, there's another video of the
teens jump. Okay, here.
And there's somebody in there, by the way.
They're inside?
Yep, there's somebody inside the car.
Oh my.
And of course, if you're inside that car, you're terrified.
Oh yeah.
Because
and they're
you
lighting
don't know what
fire
those people will do to
is
you.
yeah, it's the same car. They're lighting fire to it.
Yep.
My goodness.
Yep. So, like, here's the take on it. It's like what happens right now is that there are forces at work right now in the United States, and like what they're doing is they're trying to justify all of this stuff, but in reality, these are bad actors, because what they really want is they want to create chaos, they want to create destruction, they want to tear down the United States, and they will use these kind of things to do that. And so like Mayor Lightfoot and a new mayor that's coming in, they will always downplay the violence. They will always excuse it, and they will always say like, oh, these aren't like bad people. They're victims. They're always victims, right? That the same talking point. It's the same idea as we talked about during the Nashville shooting, which is, oh, the even though the person that shot and killed 6 people, they're the real victim here. Yeah. They were driven to it was because of mass mayhem.
They weren't valued or treated well, and it's
because they were like mistreated by society, and they weren't given everything they wanted. But here you have, and by the way, I remember like trying to find out like what triggered this whole thing, and they don't seem to know what. They just it
was triggered because it was a social media event called Teen Trend.
Oh, so somebody planned it.
It was basically just like, okay, come out and make your voices heard, and make sure they notice us.
Wow.
And it was like, okay, well, how do they notice us? And it's like, well, let's burn down, let's burn some cars, let's jump on top of buses, let's have a massive brawl and riot in the streets.
Right. It sounds like very similar to the Vancouver riots. When I was like a Vancouver Canucks fan, at the end of like their Stanley Cup run, there was like a massive riot that took place in around Vancouver. And I mean, nobody justified it. Everyone said like, this is horrible. And the people who, the problem with riots is that there's a well-documented phenomenon where people will do things during like a riot or some kind of public chaos that they wouldn't do normally.
Yep.
Because they feel like almost like it's like the purge effect. They feel like, oh, all the laws of society are no longer in effect, so they basically feel like they can do whatever they want, right?
Yeah.
And hence this incident that happened, which is basically that like people normally would not assault somebody in like, you know, out in the open and blatantly without any heart, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But then no, people actually did this, and like this is just the one caught on camera.
Yeah, this is one caught on camera, and this is one particularly. So this is a person that's not involved in the carnage.
Oh, she's a regular lady.
Regular lady, and she's trying to get into her apartment building, and they get a hold of her, and
it's a swarming. It's a swarm.
Some people need their kneecaps bashed with a baseball bat. She's like trying to get into her building. Yank her, throw her to the ground, and then, oh yeah, let's just maul her. It's like, what?
No apparent reason. Yeah, by the way, this is a very dangerous.
And with the tag, yay, we get active.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're celebrating this because why? Probably it's probably just because that woman was white and she wasn't willing to participate in their event. And so let's beat the tar out of her.
It's like what's his name? Scott Adams, the guy who animated Dilbert. Like, he's getting proven right more and more.
Oh, I know.
Because what he said after like that got him canceled. He based on a poll that said that I think it was like 45% based on that poll of black respondents basically said like
it's not okay to be white.
It's not okay to be white. So that shows an animus, if not an outright like disdain or hatred towards white people, and that's dangerous. And he was right, because this is the kind of mindset that if you and by the way, most of these kids, like, remember, like the echo chamber effect goes on. If you're like all of these kids like in this video, okay, all of them probably watch TikTok. They watch what do you call it? TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever they use to kind of watch. Okay, when you're a teenager, you basically get locked into the same videos, and basically you're always fed through the algorithms more videos of the same thing. So if you listen to somebody who constantly goes on about how white people are the worst and they're racist and they're white supremacy and they're out to get you and all that, you're gonna get fed more of those videos. and then you're
gonna believe the narrative.
You're gonna believe that the world is basically filled with like all sorts of horrible, evil white people that are out to get you. And this is not like a shot on the black community or these teenagers.
No.
It's that we are creating. Social media is creating an echo chamber effect that is absolutely radicalizing.
Yeah, radicalize
what would be normal
agenda.
kids.
Yeah.
Yes, and so these kids, like they see this idea that white supremacy is everywhere. White people are like the ultimate enemy of you, and so they feel like, we have a right to attack,
to express ourselves.
And they follow the trend of praxis. If you never heard of praxis, it's a Marxist term that basically says, if you want to be a good person, you can't be on the sidelines. You have to be involved, and you have to be involved in order to tear down the system, the oppressive system that's holding you down. Hence, why these kids are out there and they feel like they have to protest and they have to do this chaos and all that kind of stuff. However, there are very real, like obviously for this woman and for a lot of the unfortunate people out there who got caught in these riots, there's some real consequences. But here's one that really hits home. This happened in a Walmart in Chicago, and I have to admit I've never seen this kind of mayhem. So go
in my hood, can't even.
By the way, I'm not sure why I'm not getting any sound from the videos, but I can still see
everything is either on the floor. Look at this. Can't even get no fucking food for my kids.
Yeah, look at that. That's just it's brutal. Eh?
Look at this. Came in the store to try to buy something because I'm not a thief. Look at this.
Yeah. Ripped out.
In my hood, can't even get no food for my kids. Babies need milk.
Yep.
Can't even get nothing for my kids, bro. I feel like an animal, and black people made me feel like an animal. Y'all did this to us. Look at this.
It's devastating.
It's the kind of stuff that you would see in, when the apocalypse hits. You see zombie movies. That's when you see things that like places that look like this. You see end of the world scenarios where like a meteor is going to hit and all that. You see like images like that. You don't normally see those images in what you would think would be a first world country.
Yeah.
But one of the things that they did is they demonized the Walmart.
Corporation. Yeah, they demonized. Well, okay, so they demonized corporations. That it's like, oh no. It's not the reason. Like, it's not that you're unemployed. It's not that you have a vast criminal history, that you are involved in all these activities. That's not what's holding you back. No. It's these corporations that are run by white people, which is intrinsic white supremacy, that is holding you down. And it is your right, intrinsic upon you being black, that you take from them. And then when Walmart is like, guys, screw this, we're out. Then the city criticizes Walmart and saying, you're not giving them a fair chance. What are you doing? Why are you hurting and taking from these people and stealing from their way of life? And why are you treating them but it's like, are you serious right now?
Are you being serious? Yeah,
it's crazy. It's like, oh, you are being serious when you're blaming Walmart for rampant looting and there not being any single gosh darn thing on those shelves because the city has told people that it is no big deal to riot and loot and steal because, oh, these things you deserve them.
Yeah.
There's no punishment for crime.
They completely excuse it. This is why I like to say it. I said this to a couple of friends this weekend, and I think it rings true. There's a reason why. Okay, now, the example I used was Justin Trudeau, but it applies to everyone like him. Anybody who basically never takes any accountability, but it's always someone else's fault. It's always someone else responsible. Anyone who's like that, like a narcissist of that nature, they are dangerous people because they will keep doing the exact same things. They will always justify it. And they're basically like a bull in a china shop. So the mayor and all the people, all the talking heads, they excuse it. They say this is fine. There's nothing wrong here. There's nothing to see here, and they blame someone else. What does that tell you? It tells you that they're going to keep doing the exact same things. They're not going to change anything.
Nope.
They're not going to change the laws. They're not going to try to address it. There's no responsibility, no accountability. And this is a dangerous precedent because right now we're looking at Florida, we're looking at West Virginia, we're looking at Texas, all these red states. Everything's getting better in those red states. Yep. Like their societies are getting better. People are prospering. They're able to build a business, to have families and all that. All these left dominated areas like Washington, like Portland, like New York, like California, and particularly like LA. Those places are literally destroying themselves. They're literally they're like imploding. They're imploding, which is a good way of putting it. And it's insane to watch. Like they're pretty much shooting themselves in the foot and then reloading and shooting the other foot. Like that's how crazy it is.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's that's how insane the people are who are doing these things. And it's downright evil. So it's getting out of hand. Chicago is a massive story, but by the way, almost no media organization.
Only conservatives will talk about this.
Yeah.
What the left is talking about is this incident. So this incident
over there.
What's that over there? So this is a story of Ralph Yarl. Andrew Lester, accused of shooting black teen, turns himself in. So 84-year-old man in Missouri accused of shooting a black teen who mistakenly rang his doorbell has turned himself in. Authorities said he was released after posting 10% of his total $200,000 bail. Mr. Lester, who is white, allegedly shot Ralph Yarl, who is black, once in the head and once in the arm last Thursday. The boy survived. He's been charged with first-degree assault and armed criminal action. The prosecutor said there was a racial component to the shooting. Yeah, Mr. Lester has not been charged with a hate crime, but charging documents do not describe any alleged racial bias. So Ralph's mother, Cleo Negba, speaks with CBS Morning about his injuries after he was shot on Thursday. And I think that his... So yeah, this is Mr. Lester. This guy is very old. And like by all accounts, this kid seemed like a all-rounded pretty good kid.
Sure. Yeah.
Like from what it sounded like, he did legitimately go to the wrong door. He went to the wrong house. And there was probably some sort of mix-up in that the old man, who's 84, probably a little bit confused, sees somebody ring on his doorbell at 10 a.m. Because it was probably a house that he figured that his brother and sister were already inside. Like, it's possible that this kid just was like, oh, like, I'll ring the doorbell and then I'll start, like, proceeding. Like, I'll open the outside door. And then he might have shot him because he thought the kid was trying to break into his house. So, like, I really doubt there's a racial component to this. Like, none of the neighbors have spoken out that he has some sort of racial bias. And, like, it's really difficult to kind of establish these things. And, like, anytime that somebody says, oh, like, this is a racially motivated crime. And it's like, well, there should be a lot of doubt associated with that statement. Like, unless there's a clear manifesto, it's very hard to make that declaration.
Yeah, I think the best case you can make on this story is that the old man, like, this is an old man, and by the way, he's 84, right?
Yep,
84 years old. Okay, old man. I don't know, but I'm guessing that he's probably home alone.
Yep.
Sees, like, hears something at the front door, doesn't know what it is, goes, and because there's two doors. There's his indoor, and then there's like the outside, like whatever the screen door, and that was locked. The kid was trying to basically like pull open the screen door, and of course, being an old man, being a little bit like afraid, and also you have to remember this is at night. Okay, if you're gonna make the race argument, I'm like, it's a little tougher to make that argument at night when it's dark.
Yeah,
and because all he see, like,
anyone coming, like,
all he sees is like a figure trying to like pull open his door, rather than
like, well, anybody coming to your door at a period past like 8:30, 9 p.m. You're gonna have you're gonna be a lot more tentative about opening that door. Like, I remember, I might have told this story a while ago. This was like back in 2018, I believe. It was Canada Day. Canada Day, 10 p.m. at night on Canada Day. I have this guy come in the house, like, come to the door, And he's like, hey, man, where's my brother? And I'm like, who's your brother? And he's like, don't play coy with me. Just like, let me in and I'll find him. And I'm like, oh, no, you don't. Like, you stay out of here. Like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm finding my brother. He lives here. And I'm like, you're out of your mind. Get off my property.
You got the wrong address, yeah.
Like, I have a feeling that's far more likely that the kid thought that the old man was confused and the old man thought the kid was like trying to break into his house. And because the old man knows that he's not going to be able to win physically, he just likely shot the kid.
Yeah. Now they keep pointing out, like, oh, he shot twice. I'm like, well, yes, that's what you do when you have a gun. You don't shoot once, wait for a couple seconds to see if anything happened, and then shoot again. Anybody who has a gun, particularly when you're using it for self-defense, you shoot like at least 2 rounds or something like that, because your goal is not to, like, you're not aiming to kill. Like, most people are not aiming to kill. The old man probably was shot from the hip. He probably wasn't like holding the gun out
considering that this kid was shot twice, and this happened on Thursday, and he's already recovering. Like, he's already out to the hospital and recovering at home,
which is good. I'm glad.
Like, it's very, very good that he's already recovering at home. But like, this is not like I shoot you in the center of your head and like the bullet is intended for your brain. It's much more likely that it like skinned him. Or like a surface level injury.
Well, like I was reading a little bit of like, it sounds like he might have some speech issues that they're kind of seeing.
Okay.
Okay. Ralph was suffering from speech problems and had a long road to recovery. We won't know until like, we get the full story. But here's the main takeaway here. The media, almost exclusively, all the leftist media, CNN, ABC, CBS News, all the other ones, they were pretty much covering this story. Why? Because they have selective. Okay, so like going back as a kind of like, a touchstone to the CBC, how do you know that the media is biased, and how do you know that the media is not giving you truth, but they're choosing, is when they choose to highlight a story that serves a certain narrative, and they choose to obfuscate another story that is inconvenient to the narrative.
And when the Chiron deliberately tries to emphasize certain aspects, like I remember I read one, it was a Chiron from what, I don't know exactly what news organization, I think it was like MSNBC or something, and it was an opinion piece, but it was highlighted as like news and journalism, and it was like, this needs to stop being everyday America. And it's like, what? This is not everyday America. Like, there's a reason that this story is being highlighted by the left, is because it's so flipping rare.
Yeah.
This is something that rarely happens.
And also, it's very important to remember what happened after the Nashville shooting. The media basically tried to obfuscate and tried to downplay.
We can't talk about the person. We can't talk about them.
But another thing that did not happen is that not only did Joe Biden not go and see all the victims of that shooting, but Kamala Harris actually went to the city and deliberately avoided seeing anybody who's a victim of that to see the Nashville 3 that were there. Yeah. But in this story, I don't know if you know this, Stephen.
Biden invited the family to the White House.
Called the family, and he basically went out of his way to invite them to the White House. It shows you that these people are so hypocritical. They're not even trying to hide it. They're not even trying to hide how brutally hypocritical they are. Like,
interestingly enough, like, they'll invite that family to the White House, but another incident of like somebody kind of killing somebody in their driveway. So construction boss accused of killing 20-year-old woman, killing her, who accidentally drove up his remote driveway, is described by neighbors as a narcissist with a short fuse, would often rage about trespassers.
Okay, so let's compare the two stories. Go for it.
So Kaylin Gillis was reportedly shot down Saturday night. This was this past Saturday night, so also over the weekend. Gillis and her 3 friends mistakenly went to the wrong address. Same incident. When the tragedy took place, a neighbor, Adam Matthews, said he wasn't surprised Monahan was accused of this horrific crime. And the neighbor told the New York Post that he was not surprised. And Gillis was traveling around 10 p.m., so same time, looking for a friend's address when the driver of the vehicle mistakenly pulled into his driveway. Reportedly stepped onto the porch, reportedly firing 2 shots, One of them, which hit Gillis, was the passenger of the vehicle, according to the Washington County Sheriff Jeffrey Murphy. Matthews said one of the Monaghan's biggest pet peeves was people trespassing on his property.
Yeah.
So this
Totally
is
innocent
like
girl.
it's totally innocent girl, like same reported kind of circumstances, but because this is a white on white crime, and so it's intraracial crime, then White House doesn't talk about. Media basically ignores it, aside from specific like censor right or right outlets. Yeah, but mostly just to point out the hypocrisy of the left. Yeah, and the kind of mainstream establishment media.
Yeah, if you wonder if they're fake news, this
points it out clearly.
This is such a perfect example. I was like surprised when I saw it. I was like, wow, this is like almost exactly point for point. It's a complete opposite. Look at look at the details. First, you have the people. Okay, so two old men, right? This guy is 64, 65? 65. 65-year-old man. Okay.
85-year-old man.
And versus an 84-year-old man. So like older men. And somebody comes into the property.
Wrong address.
Of them wrong address. Totally honest mistake. Wrong address. Okay. Now you have one who shoots defensively because the guy is right in front of him, trying to open the door, showing at least this
is what we're assuming is the most likely outcome.
If he thinks, oh, this guy's trying to break into my house, I'm in danger. You can make a very good
late
case
at night. I'm a very old man.
Right. However, this guy, he sees somebody pull up to his driveway
and so shoots into their vehicle.
Massive distance from the people, and he just shoots like without any even warning or anything like that. I assume that's totally indispensable, right? Second, you have these are innocent people. These are like a 20-year-old woman and that was a 16-year-old kid. 16-year-old kid. Both of them made a mistake, and the other kid, the kid got injured. This girl dead, totally dead, and she's not even a driver. She's like the passenger, right? And of course, it's one-on-one crime. They just completely gloss over this. Who cares?
Exist.
Don't need to know anything about. Nothing to see here. It's tragic. Both of these stories are tragic, but they can't weaponize this story because they can't make the case that this is like white supremacy. If this girl was black, you can bet that they would be all over this. This would be media circus. Like, woman got gunned down by a crazy redneck in the. Actually, I bet you they wish this was the story with a black girl, because they could. This would actually be even more.
Oh, it would be front page headlines for weeks.
This would be such.
Black girl goes on to white man's property and white man shoots her.
Yes, and this is in New York too. So it's crazy. So we go to show you because CBC, they're arguing the CBC is like independent journalism. It's like, no, they're not.
No, they're not.
Because if you go through the entire last year of all the way that they report, they lie, they hide information that's relevant, they distort the facts, they intentionally frame things in a certain way to make it to make it propaganda. They use buzzwords and all sorts of words that are intended to pretty much get you to think these are the bad guys. So they use words like far right or extremists or something like that. They use this all the time. These are fake news. There's a reason why they're called fake news, because like I said, I shared this on Facebook and I think it's accurate. It's like the CBC makes mistakes and Rebel News makes mistakes. But
they're different.
That's not bad, because Rebel News makes mistakes and they're like, whoops, we made a mistake, and they correct it. The CBC makes mistakes on purpose and they double down, and if they ever get caught, they hide it. Yeah, go for it.
So I was detailing this story. I'm not going to highlight it too much. I had an interaction on Twitter. And if I make a mistake, I'll be like, okay, yeah, haha, laugh at me. I made a dumb mistake. I was silly. Admonish me, laugh at me, whatever. No. I had a guy and made a fairly basic math mistake. I tried to be fairly nice about it. I was like, okay, no, dude, yeah, your math is a little wrong there. Might want to fix that. And he's like, no, it's not. And I'm like, okay, no, it is. This is what your math equation would look like. And he's like, what are you talking about? You're just being stupid. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a little more in your face about this. I'm like, do I have to teach you how to do basic math? I'm like, here's what this would come out to. And show him the screenshots. Goes on and on and on. And then eventually after, like, it took forever because I kept saying and be like, okay, like, put your numbers, like, here's a website. Put your numbers into the website and show me that it gets your result. And he's like, no, not going to do that. I don't have to use a machine to prove that I'm right because my math does it for me. I'm like, no. I use a machine because you can't. Because you can't put your numbers into a calculator. You can't put your numbers into a percentage determiner or whatever that is. And everything that I have is proving that my system is right and that his numbers are wrong. And then eventually he comes around and he's like, slyly posts the numbers that I have. And I'm like, look, I'm right. You proved that I'm right. And he's like, well, like, the percentage was wrong, but my math was right. And I'm like, literally, that's what I've been saying for the past, like, 2 days. And I'm like, I've been trying to get you to admit that you've been wrong for 2 days. And then on top of that, the funny part was, and he's like, well, you never said that. And I'm like, what? Literally? And he's like, it's your fault for not pointing that out. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, it's my fault that you were just, like, deliberately wrong for 2 days?
Well, that's not the way. That's the way these people operate.
Oh, I know.
They operate from the premise that they can't be wrong because they're on the right side of history, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because, like, this guy was like, he's like, I'll expose you as the liar and the fraud that you are. And I'm like, okay, man. All right. You give it your best shot. And, like, up until that, okay, it was sort of funny. Up until that point, I've been saying things, and he's like, where's your source for that? And I'm like, this? And he's like, where's your source for everything else that you've claimed? And I'm like, okay, like, what do you want a source for? Like, I got the time. What claim do you want a source for? And he's like, all of them. And he's like, go through every Twitter post that you've made and source it. Otherwise, like, you're a liar. And I'm like, I have a day job, so no. And I'm like, you tell me what source you want, and I'll give you that one specific source. And he's like, how about this one? And I'm like, here you go. How about this one? Here you go. And he's like, well, you're not proving every claim that you're making. And I'm like, no, I'm just proving the ones that you're asking for. And then literally I was like, I give this 1 point, and I'm like, yeah, like, this is based on the population of the United States, which is this. And he's like, where's your source for that? And I'm like, I have to prove what the population of the United States is. And I'm like, I have to argue with you like a child. I'm like, okay, there you go, kiddo. There you go.
Yeah, you have to remember, like, these people, like, this is a new tactic that leftists are using online all the time. We're running into it all the time. They try to basically, like, put you on the spot and be like, you need to prove that. Where's your source?
Yeah, prove it right away.
The reason why they do that is because this is a tactic being taught to them by everyone around them. It's basically put the onus on your opponent to have to prove everything. And if they can't prove everything that you want, then you can accuse them of basically, like, you know, like, being like, you know, oh, like, you clearly you're making up things and all that misinformation kind of thing, right? And most general people aren't as prepared as you and I, Stephen.
No,
when we're online. So that's why it works. And when they run into somebody like you, they're usually dumbfounded, and they usually just respond by just kind of, like, you know, disengaging.
Yeah,
because it's not they're not arguing in good faith like most of these people, right? They can't be wrong. They're always on the right side of history.
Oh yeah, and like one of the funny parts was that this guy had, like, sort of an accomplice who was like, be like, yeah, like, look at that, like, that was such a good point. And then as soon as the math thing comes up, and I'm like, oh look, you went absent for 2 days, and then you can't. I'm like, do you have a point? I'm like, oh, do you have a comment on this? And he's like, I haven't been reading this, and I'm like, sure you haven't.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you've been reading up until right about there, and then you stop for 2 days. And then now you're starting to chime in again. It's like, oh, yeah, good for you.
Yeah. It's, like, arguing online is...
it's a whole thing.
It's an exercise in futility. Because, I hate to say it, most of the people...
Yes.
Online, they're not... They don't want to learn. They don't want to actually, like work together towards, like, you know, like, more knowledge.
Common good.
They just want to shut you down. They want to, like,
they want to attack.
Yeah, it's all. That's why I've stopped really doing that, because I'm like, I find that there's very little actual benefit to doing it. Like, I'm like, what's the actual benefit?
Okay.
But anyways,
all right.
speaking of people that are entitled and feel like they're always right, talk about Lizzo.
So, from HuffPo, Lizzo declares, I am the beauty standard, an in-your-face affirmation. Singer gave herself high praise in a viral Instagram message. So, Lizzo just upped her self-love up a notch over the weekend. I just figuring my showering and doing a little routine, and you know what I realized? I am effing gorgeous. The Grammy-winning rapper said in an Instagram video she posted Saturday, I am the beauty standard. Catch up, B. Yeah, okay, let's just watch this. I'm sure this is just going to be wonderful. So,
oh, wonderful! I'm looking forward to it already.
Good luck, preventing yourself from throwing up.
I just finished showering and doing my little routine, and you know what I realized? I am fucking gorgeous. I am the beauty standard. Catch up, bitch.
That she messes up like an idiot. But my perfect face and rockin' body. No, Lizzo, it's not. You are not the beauty standard.
Yeah, that sucks when she says at the end. I can't help that I'm God's favorite. Oh, there's an arrogance. There's an arrogance there.
It's just bold-faced narcissism. Yeah, and what it's all this whole idea that it's all about you. Nothing is about everyone else. Everything is about self-love, self-praise, body positivity, glorifying yourself. There's no sort of introspection, self-reflection, condemnation of anything you are doing, because everything you're doing, no matter what you're doing, as long as you're being quote unquote tolerant of progressivism, then you're glorified by the left. And it's no.
It goes even beyond that, because this is okay, so anybody who's in Hollywood, people know when you're in Hollywood, when you're famous, one of the big things that happens and people that are famous is that you start believing the hype. You start believing the accolades that are heaped upon you by everybody. You start to believe them. And by the way, this can happen to anybody. If you or I, Stephen, became, I don't know, overnight sensations, we drop a video that gets 1 million views or whatever, and suddenly we get I don't know, just if we become famous.
Yeah.
We are just as likely and there's much danger of becoming
arrogantly prideful.
Yeah, everybody who's famous has this issue. And of course, you have to be careful, because this is self-destructive. This is the kind of thing that will destroy anybody if they don't learn to find a nuance to balance themselves. And unfortunately, Hollywood has a very big way of encouraging people into this kind of behavior. So Lizzo probably very genuinely believes that she is actually all this great.
Oh, yeah.
She constantly gets fan mail. She goes to concerts. Thousands of people adore her. She everywhere she goes, she's recognized. She's famous. So of course she's going to believe that she's amazing. But she doesn't realize that this kind of arrogance and pride and all these vices that are normally we normally should recognize as negative vices. She doesn't see that this is this kind of stuff that's going to destroy her ultimately, right? And also, because she can't see it, she'll never want to change it. Okay, the fact that she's overweight is going to you can't just pretend that reality doesn't exist. Reality will always take a toll. And unfortunately, the reality for Lizzo is that her she's quite overweight, and that's going to weigh on her. That's going to cause her health problems. Yeah, I didn't mean to say that, but yeah, it's a joke. But it's all of these things will affect her in her life, and she can't avoid it. It's going to affect her.
It's going to cause her long-term damage
and all that. And ultimately, when she does fade out of the spotlight, which happens to everybody, even Madonna, who was famous for centuries, or for a long time,
centuries.
Yeah, almost for decades. Even she is losing it, and now what does she have? She's lost all the fame. She's no longer in the spotlight, and
she's just trying endless things to try and stay relevant.
Yeah, and she's a cautionary tale. So Lizzo is a symptom of our society, where people want to be famous just for fame's sake.
Yes.
Not because they've done something incredible or accomplished anything great. And our society has this sickness right now where we want to praise everything, including things that historically have been seen as negative things. Even if she was like thin and all that kind of stuff, like if she was like Taylor Swift or something like that, like the amount of if she believes all that kind of stuff about herself, narcissism, pride, arrogance, all these things are not good.
No, they're not.
Celebrated.
And narcissism, pride, and arrogance, and if you have excessive amounts of them, then they lead you to make videos and silliness and insanity, like this video that was released on Clown World, or that was highlighted on Clown World, of this influencer called Jalen Shaney. And she started plus-size influencer, and she started a petition with the FAA. And this is what her petition stated.
My petition states, all plus-size passengers should be provided with an additional seat or 2 or 3 depending on their size and need. Airlines should also offer a straightforward refund process for those who are buying additional seats independently.
My petition states that the airline companies and the FAA have to provide obese individuals who cannot fit into one seat extra seats, whether that be 1 or up to 3 seats, which if you need, like here, like this is what basically the size. This is my couch. It is a bit of a mess because this is where my kids play, but that's basically the size of 4 seats. If you require 4 seats on an airplane to sit comfortably, you basically need to be moved by a truck because you cannot walk.
At the very least, there's a reason why you have to pay for 2 seats.
Yes.
Because you just don't have enough space. Okay, so everything in the world, every company has to make a general assumption of what the range is for something. There's a reason why men who are like over 6'5" or 8 or whatever, they can't get regular shoe sizes.
Yep.
Why? Because they like anything over 13 is considered like out of the norm. Okay, but they have like ridiculously large feet, and so they have to get custom shoes. Are they discriminated against? No, there's a range which companies have to make their seats. Car seats, they make a range based on like a certain demographic of like statistics, right?
Yeah.
There are going to be people who cannot fit in certain cars. Like and you have to find a car like that. Now, this woman is basically saying the world has to bend around me and has to accommodate me. Now, what she is asking for is she's saying like they have to make this a default setting that I get special privileges because I'm unusual, or like I have like unusual needs, right? And that's the problem. It's like, most people actually say that if you are very overweight and you're trying to fly on a plane, it isn't fair to the other passengers for you to basically take up way more room when they also pay for a seat. So you should definitely get 2 seats. But she's basically saying, no, that's not fair. I should get 1 seat, or I should
pay for 1 seat.
I should pay for 1 seat, but I should get additional seats for free.
Yeah. There was another part of the argument where she's like, if anybody complains about like me overlapping onto their seat, then they should be evicted from the flight.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, this is a sense of self-entitlement and pride in your own, unfortunately, your own failure to keep a healthy body weight. Like, let's be honest, Danny, you and I, while reasonably within like a modicum of health, we are higher than we should be, and we both acknowledge that. Yeah, we're overweight. But we're not, and we try and keep that, like we try and make decisions which are healthier, and we try and do things which are more active, so that we don't
aiming for
better. Whereas individuals like this, they've completely given up, and they're encouraging others to completely give up on any idea of having a normal weight or trying to be healthy for the sake of being healthy.
Yeah, and they're also basically trying to say that I can do whatever I want and everyone else has to just suck it up. Imagine being on a plane, and you smell terrible.
Yes.
Like you basically have like the worst body odor ever and all that. do people have a right to be like, yeah, you like, you know, to complain about
that?
No, you're smell shaming me. Like, imagine how absurd that is.
Yeah.
Or imagine if somebody has, I don't know, like, you know, you're really sick, you're coughing, you're sneezing everywhere, and all that. Do people have the right to complain? I'm like, yeah, like they might have the right to complain. Yeah, like it's when you really think about it, what this person is advocating for is entitlement. It's entitlement.
Yes.
That's pretty much what it comes down to. I'm entitled to whatever I want, and this is why our society is really aiming in the wrong direction. We're basically telling everyone you're entitled to whatever you want. You're entitled to never be judged ever. And so bad behavior is basically being completely and totally overlooked, which is why we're destroying ourselves.
Yeah, well, it's sort of like the inversion of like you think of the famous JFK quote. It's like, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. Whereas nowadays, what people are being taught is ask what others can do for you, not what you can do for others.
Yeah.
Because you're being told that everything is about you, and that if you actually act for the good of others, it's like, oh, well, that's not really necessary. Like, why would you do that? Like, sometimes people are scorned, like, or even acts of chivalry, like opening the door. It's just like you must have some ulterior motive, and it's like, serving others does not instinctively or should not instinctively come with an ulterior motive.
Yeah,
and you're assuming, you're punishing good behavior because you're assuming an ulterior motive because that person is not as selfish and narcissistic as you are. And that's unfortunate that you think that way. And we think that, like, we try and encourage a behavior of we should push towards behaviors of self-sacrifice. We should push towards behaviors where we're serving other people. We're serving the common good instead of just serving our own needs and our own wants and our own desires, and other people be, frankly, damned.
Yeah.
And that's it's an unfortunate way that our society is going.
Yeah. Now, with that being said, like, you know, like we're seeing that this trend of like never apologizing for bad behavior, and we're like, you know, see this trend again with Budweiser, because Budweiser is even after like all the damage, all the pushback that they've gotten, it's like we have a little update on what they're doing. So this actually came out on Friday. Their CEO, like people know, came up with a non-apology apology, which was like everyone saw right through that. Yeah. And so, instead of an apology, what did they do? They came up with a new commercial. And this commercial is so cringy in the sense that it's pandering.
Oh, it's so pandering. Well, because it's basically not quite a shot-for-shot remake, but it's basically just a rehashing of one of their most famous commercials. And that was, I don't know if I can actually find it, but there was a commercial that Budweiser put out right after 9/11. And it was very similar to this. Yeah. Let's see if I can find it.
But anyways, go for it.
Why are you loading?
Let me tell you a story.
About a beer. Apparently.
About a beer. Rooted in the heart of America. Found in a community where a handshake is a sure contract. Brewed for those who found opportunity in challenge and hope in tomorrow. Raised by generations, willing to sip, share, risk, remember. This is a story bigger than beer. This is the story of the American spirit.
Yeah. This one's interesting because like it's obvious that this boycott is hurting Budweiser. Like the fact that the CEO had to respond, the fact that they were off social media, the fact they got ratioed into oblivion when they tried to like some stupid little thing that they said TGIF ? And people have like ratioed them into oblivion. And then they released this video, which is basically trying to be like, hey, look, we're conservative. We're with you guys. It's like they're doing everything imaginable to avoid an actual apology. And so you realize, like, yeah, that there's this tells me two things. It tells me, one, that the powers that are pushing on Budweiser are far more, like, far stronger than I think I initially thought, because you would think the logical thing is, like, the majority of your customer base is conservative, like, like people, but they're doing everything imaginable to avoid ever, like, apologizing, which tells you that there's got to be some major forces, like, pushing against them from the other side.
Let's check this out. This is so I just looked this up. It only aired once. It ran during the Super Bowl in 2002 and was later updated in honor of the 10th anniversary. So let's check it out. Let's see what it has. Let's see what it looked like 20 years ago. That's actually I like that commercial quite a bit. Like it doesn't say anything, but it shows a lot. Because it was in kind of like, this is how America felt. It was like everybody was so impacted by the events of 9/11 that you had the entire country was like in mourning.
Yes, in silence.
And so the entire thing was in silence, and it was the commercial's in deference. It's in deference to the events that's going on, because this is not a political statement. It's because their old motto was, "This Bud's for you." And it's like, this is, we can become united. We can join together around something we can all, quote unquote, enjoy, Budweiser. But coming together and having community and having mutual respect for one another, because we're brought together around this event. Whereas nowadays, Anheuser-Busch has moved in the wrong direction, and they're trying to reinvigorate this spirit. But if they had never done the Bud Light thing with Dylan Mulvaney, like the Budweiser ad where they're like, "This is a beer," and all that, like, that would actually play over fairly well in middle America.
It would. I would be very down with that, actually.
Yes, it would be a good commercial, but now it's just pandering.
It's the worst kind of pandering.
It's the worst kind of pandering, because we know that it's a reactionary pandering.
They're basically telling their audience and all these people that are actually very upset,
we think you're stupid,
like,
and we can be swayed by this.
We're dumb, and we're like, oh, look, like, they're back. It's like, it's really bad. So ultimately, like, like, by the way, one of the ways that we can tell that this has moved from just a kind of like a boycott into a cultural moment is that we've seen some crazy. Have you seen, like, did you see that there's that one country artist who changed the lyrics of his song?
Yep.
From Budweiser, like in the cooler, to like Coors Light, right? There's the other one
who caught a Bud Light on stage and crushed it.
And he crushed it, and he gave like a Coors Light to his guy
and then told him to shotgun it.
Right. It's like, these are cultural movements. This has become more than just. It's a uniting force. A lot of people have like tried to criticize, say like, well, like Coors Light and all these other places, like, they have pride things and all that. And like, here's the main thing I think is correct. The right approach to this is that's different. Yes. Because what they're doing is they're trying to appeal to adults. These are beer. You do not appeal to children. You appeal to adults. But Dylan Mulvaney, like the whole thing, he was drinking beer in the tub. Dylan Mulvaney's audience is children.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
and he tries
12 to 15.
distinctly to appeal to children.
Right. Secondly, Dylan Mulvaney is insulting both the trans people and women.
Yeah.
Because both of them are insulted by his antics. Dylan Mulvaney is a perfect example of a perfect narcissist who is getting rich off of of basically making caricatures and really bad caricatures.
I'm kicking myself for not covering this.
What's this?
I saw a video today from Not the Bee.
Of?
Sesame Street.
Okay.
Sesame Street put on a drag show with its characters.
Oh, no way.
They put Elmo and the Cookie Monster in drag.
Let's cover it on Thursday.
Yep. Let's cover it on Thursday.
Let's cover it on Thursday.
Messed up.
I will have to see it.
Oh, I was like, what?
But, yeah. But, okay, so let's move on to, this story. So this story is, speaking of, going from bad to worse, this law that they're putting in Washington is
bad.
Just beyond the pale. It's like,
all right, let's quickly go over it.
Hold on.
Yeah. So, radical Washington trans youth law legalized state-sanctioned kidnapping. Democrats,
they're not kidding.
Yeah, effectively legalized state-sanctioned kidnapping while pretending to save children from abusive families. With one single trans youth law, Democrats usurp parental rights where they tend to break up families that don't parent the way they would. This is the most dangerous and extremist bill the Democrats have ever passed. So, SB 5599, sponsored by far-left state senator Marco Elias, permits shelters and host homes to provide housing for runaway minors, though the current law requires parental notification of the whereabouts of runaway children. This would consider merely seeking so-called gender-affirming care a compelling reason not to notify parents of the child's whereabouts. Under the state's care, the child can undergo surgical interventions like mastectomy and facial feminization without parental consent. It just passed in the House in a party-line vote, and now it heads back to the Senate where it's expected to pass. Democrats hope that you think they're saving trans kids from abusive parents. You label them as heroes, but they're all villains here. Yeah, this article is very straightforward and it's very true.
Yep.
Like, we've been noticing this stuff that's been has happened in other nations around the world and in Europe, and of course this is happening here in Canada. Like, this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to, because due to laws about abortion and not wanting to have any responsibility in raising children, the left says, well, we don't want to raise our own kids, we don't want to have responsibility, we don't want to take any sort of measures in which to make ourselves better people. We are just going to take your children from you because we don't feel that you're raising them to our level or our standard of tolerance and compassion, and our level of tolerance and compassion is child mutilization and abuse.
It's even deeper than that, though, because those are the people on the ground, the people you see are the people making these arguments. It's worse than that. Like, if you really look at the extreme left, the far left, and all that kind of stuff, they are anti-life. Okay, every policy that they have, it's anti-life. Pro-life, like the abortion is anti-life. It's about killing children because they want to use abortion as birth control. Okay. All the euthanasia laws, Canada has one of the most insane euthanasia laws in the world, and it's basically killing people. They're basically like, oh, you're having a hard time? Well, don't worry, we'll send someone to your house and we will kill you. That's insane. They're transing the kids, which means they're mutilating them and making them sterile, so that they'll never be able to to basically ever have sex again, or have children again, or anything like that. And then when they commit suicide because of the incredible Frankenstein-like operations that they're going to put them through, then they'll kill themselves, and then they'll be like, you see, look at all these kids killing themselves. That's more reason that we should even double down even harder. They use the very thing. They are the ones that destroy these children and wreck them for life and cause them to basically have no hope, so that they kill themselves, and then they evilly use the death of those people to justify more.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Imagine they're actually driving people to suicide and then using their suicide as a way of justifying more of the same. It's insane.
It's absolutely insane. We do have to continue to move on. These last few stories.
That's all I got by
shotgun. So,
go for it.
Last story. This is not the last story, but it's one of the last stories. It's a really weird story. Rice is now killing the planet, apparently. It's the thing most of the humanity survives on. So rice is to blame for around 10% of global emissions of methane, a gas that over 2 decades traps about 80 times as much heat as carbon dioxide. Scientists say that the world wants to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Rice cannot be ignored.
Yeah,
so Yeah, 95% of the global output of rice is produced and consumed in developing countries. What is this really about? It will kill tens of millions of innocent people. I'm starting to think it's never been about saving the planet. Well,
yeah, it's about it's anti-life.
It's about population control and anti-life. Yes,
anti-life. Yeah,
because it would trigger global famine and it would trigger mass death. Just like if people went carbon neutral, what is it? 3 days and like millions of people would be dead. Like this is the sort of stuff which they want to push for. They're not going to openly admit it, at least not publicly. But this is the end result of a lot of what their goals are. It is mass death, and it's really scary. Another sort of scary thing: a huge red flag in the rush to ChatGPT in your doctor's office. Patients can simply resort to ChatGPT instead of personalized doctor. Hundreds of image-specific AI algorithms across the field of radiology and cardiology. 502 applications have been approved by the FDA between 2019 and 2023. Close to 400 of those are for radiology. What about direct clinical applications? According to a recent study on the clinical use of AI, applying the AI algorithms in a clinical setting could help primary care providers classify patients with osteoporosis and improve treatment by recommending appropriate exercise programs. Fortunately, there's a huge caveat. When these algorithms are extended to clinical practices without set standards and requiring massive amounts of data on which to train, and AI, when AI fails in a diagnosis, there is vulnerability for a lawsuit to both a healthcare facility or hospital, potentially a physician. It's made worse when unregulated bot models are available to the general public. According to a study just published in the Annals of Biomedical Engineering, ChatGPT, with its ability to generate human-like text based on large amounts of data, ChatGPT has the potential to support individuals and communities making informed decisions about their health. Yep, like
basically,
it'll tell people what to do, and people will. Yep.
They want to replace doctors with AI.
Yeah.
The problem, of course, is that even doctors who are very well trained on how to diagnose and how to make tons of mistakes, and they and even sometimes they don't even make mistakes. They just the diagnosis might be based on like like the proper, but it's not 100% right all the time.
Yeah.
Because they sometimes get it wrong. Like people go to the doctor and they think like I have stomach
intuition matters a lot.
Yeah, there's a ton of intuition with doctors that they have to basically, like the symptoms don't tell them exactly what's wrong. It's like detective game.
Yep.
Now, AI is great if they need information about things that they haven't looked into.
To quickly analyze something, which is
give me all the studies on this condition that came out in the last 10 years, and that gives them a quick way to find the
good amount of body of evidence.
Yes, but when you try to apply it in medicine, the chances of real problems are massive. So, yeah, watch out for that. And then let's finish up on this really terrible story from Israel.
Oh yeah,
Israel. It's
it's weird.
You and I covered a story a while ago. What was that? The two guys in the parliament wanted to pass a law. What was the law again? Remember? They wanted to pass a law, I think, banning.
It was basically what it was going to do is it would ban public evangelization and public preaching.
Yes.
So it's basically like you could only talk about God in your home or in church, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it didn't matter if it were it wasn't just banning loudspeaker and standing on a street corner. No, it was if you talk about Jesus in public, even with another passerby on the street, then someone can report you and you can be arrested. This is the kind of stuff. And it's interesting that, of course, nowadays Christians are being viciously persecuted and attacked, spat on, and abused in Israel under Benjamin Netanyahu's regime, and authorities are doing little to nothing to hold their abusers to account, according to Christian leaders in the Holy Land. Churches being vandalized, the statues of Jesus Christ smashed, and Christian gravesites being desecrated. So Israeli occupation, calling them Israeli occupation forces, assault Christians who were observing the Holy Saturday and preventing them from reading the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Let's just watch this video.
So this is like the army.
Yeah.
Basically stopping people from going to church. Of course, they have full.
The guy with the camera is so oblivious. Look at him. Okay, that's funny. He's just I'm gonna take a picture.
like there's these like Jewish, I think these Jewish guys. There's this one and one below this one, but
yeah,
this one here. These
colonial
like
settlers
Jewish,
abused two nuns and spit at them.
As they walk by.
Wow.
Yep. Pure hatred.
Like, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Spit on Christian nuns. It's a hateful, vindictive. That's so weird.
Mm-hmm.
Considering what Christians, especially in the United States and North America, have done for the state of Israel.
Yep.
Like, this is just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
How Christians are being treated over in Israel.
And it's growing everywhere on earth. Like Russia passed some pretty rough laws against Christianity, like a couple years ago. Ukraine is like cracking down on Christianity, like really hard. Israel is cracking down. America, like obviously, North America is a joke of religious persecution. Like here in our city, here in Calgary, like they basically made it illegal to protest evil.
Yeah.
You just can't. And then, like obviously, like there's some people here that we know that are like showing up at these protests, and it's so obvious. These cops are just
like even the fact the fact that the cops that show up to these events have the rainbow flag emblazoned as their police logo. It's like, well, clearly you're not going to enforce the law fairly.
No.
Clearly you're biased. And unfortunately, because they actually run an okay PR campaign, so many people are just like, oh, like the cops are biased? And it's like, yes, they are exceptionally biased. They are, it's like the law and order and justice, unfortunately, to some of these police officers means absolutely nothing as long as they can enforce the law in a targeted fashion.
Yeah, and it's the same thing as the CBC that we started this whole thing with. People, there's people out there who still believe that the CBC is quality journalism.
No.
Yeah, and they're told that by the lead, like by our prime minister and by all these leaders and all that. That this is like the gold standard of journalism, and they don't realize that it's basically Pravda, the Soviet paper that was completely propaganda. Like it's amazing how much people don't know, and I run into people like this all the time. They're so completely out of touch with what really is there. It's quite remarkable. So yeah, definitely read. Like we put these stories out there, read through them, like check them out. It's better to be informed. We're getting to a time in our world where you can't just sit on the sidelines anymore. Like you can't, because they're coming for you. They're coming for your kids. They're coming for your freedom. They're coming for like your life, really. Like they want to install AI in order to be able to install social credit systems, like Soviet style control. Like they're coming, and people think well, the fire hasn't reached my house, and so I won't do anything until there's the danger is nearby. Not realizing that it's always easier to oppose the danger early, and it's virtually impossible to oppose the danger once it's completely taken over. That's the problem. And I think people have to really wake up to the idea that this is coming and you have to be ready. Yeah, that's all I got to say. Anything else?
No, that's a good way to finish off. So that's what we're going to end for tonight's show. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you've been following us on our video platforms such as YouTube, BitChute, and Rumble, then of course like, share, comment, subscribe. And check us out on our text platforms such as Parler, Gitter, Twitter, and Facebook. Give us a like, subscribe, comment. Tell us how we're doing. If you have any questions about any sources that we might have, if you have any questions or comments about future episodes, about things that we might be doing, about suggestions about what we can cover, about doing like man on the ground, man on the street interviews, we're totally down for that. We always like doing the man on the street interview style setups. Kind of get the feel and get the pulse of the city. We always really enjoy doing that. So we will be back on Thursday for our regularly scheduled Thursday live stream. We'll start at, of course, around 7:45 to 8 p.m. And we will see you there on Twitch and YouTube and Facebook. So until then, we always like to remind you, Shrewd Dudes Podcast. Why be rude when you can be shrewd? Have a great night, everybody. And as always, God bless.
Good night, everybody.